Good evening and welcome to Talk It Out, sponsored by ArabLounge.com. Suzy Salamy is a Palestinian-American filmmaker whose hard work in production and post-production has had her become a part of many internationally acclaimed projects, including About Baghdad, Palestine is Waiting, and the series Nothing is Safe with Deep Dish TV. Simin Farkhondeh is an award-winning independent filmmaker, educator, and artist living in New York. Her work has been broadcast on PBS, Channel 4 in England, and CUNY TV. Amongst her work is Salt Peanuts on the plight of airline workers after September 11th, who gives freely from her lips about temporary marriage, which is a taboo in the Iranian culture. Thank you so much for being a part of Talk It Out, Suzy and Simin.
Thank you.
And I'd like to also welcome our audience tonight before we get to chat with all filmmakers and see 4 different clips of their work that reflect a certain social and cultural reality in the Middle East. We're going to get to meet all of you guys. Sarah, we know you, Sarah from Top 10, but you go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Sarah and I'm 24 years old.
Isra?
Hi, Isra Kawas Meitarash, 22 years old.
My name is Firas and I'm 24 years old.
You forgot your age?
I can't forget my age.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Ahmed. I'm 26 years old.
Thank you so much, guys. I'm just joking with you. Thank you so much, guys, for being a part of Talk It Out tonight. Suzy and Simin, I just want to ask you quick questions. Obviously, from the brief introduction that I gave about the both of you, there's some really, how do I explain, hardcore titles from very big regions in the Middle East that have been especially highlighted recently in the news. How does it feel living in the United States while you're portraying realities from back in the Middle East, harsh realities that are back in the Middle East? Suzy, go ahead.
First of all, I'm 32.
Okay.
Just turned it.
Happy birthday,
Thank you.
belated.
How does it feel to live here and portray the? I mean, I think for me, it's my grandparents who came to America, so it was kind of, I had the ability to blend into American culture and sort of forget about it. But once you recognize what's going on in the Middle East, especially Palestine and Iraq, and with Lebanon in the last couple of years, well, the last 50 years there, but especially the last couple of years, I think once your eyes are open, it's hard to ignore. Mm-hmm. So for me, and I think probably for you, it's different because
it's different, but similar.
But
I mean, for me, I think it's a necessity. It's crucial. I'm the first generation here, and as soon as I got here, I knew that Iranians and what it means to be Iranian is mistaken and is misunderstood. So from the very beginning, I knew I had to make art and films about trying to fix that wrong picture and to really make people understand what does it mean to be Iranian, what does it mean to be Middle Eastern, It's not just Persian rugs and, Persian cats, we're talking about that, or terrorists, there's a lot of gray area, and so I've, been dedicating my time to doing a lot of films.
And I think that we have access, because of our heritage, to the people from, in the Middle East and people who are living here now, to, give voice to those people that is different from someone who has no connection and looking at them in sort of an anthropological way.
So especially a second generation, you could have just said, forget about it, I'm in America now. What made you, what made you, actually go after that?
When the second Intifada started, you can't ignore the news, and
really?
You can, yes, you can. But someone offered me a trip. I had never been, and someone offered me a trip to Lebanon, to the Palestinian refugee camps there, to do a short piece, and that's actually where we shot the footage for Palestine is Waiting, which is a short 10-minute piece about the refugee camps in Lebanon, which of course is hugely loaded, but I had never been at all, so I went, and once I went, it was this amazing stark contrast between being in the camps and shooting all day long and then going out at night in Beirut. Which, I mean, as you know, it's totally two different experiences.
Lives, absolutely.
Yeah. And so that was the first time, and once I went, I was hooked, and I didn't. And then I traveled to Palestine itself, and I have relatives there, and I have relatives in Lebanon. I'm also part Lebanese and Irish. It's a big messy mix there.
So
but
you can have a lot of documentaries.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that you can't. It's difficult to, like I said, to ignore, and there's so much that needs to be said, and it combines the two passions, like film and politics, of my life. So.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah,
go ahead. Simin.
For me, it started really in terms of making films about the Middle East in 1991, when the first Iraq War started. I was working with Paper Tiger Television, which is a small collective in New York that makes films trying to read between the lines of the media and also talking about what's missing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I remember early on when the war was starting to happen, Iraq and Kuwait had the conflict, and America was gearing up for that. I started making a few Paper Tiger shows about the issue and looking at the way the media was portraying it. And very soon, we got together and we said, well, we should send these tapes around. And there's a group called Deep Dish TV, which is a satellite network. And the idea is that you connect with people who are not the big media, but who are grassroots.
Yes.
And so we started connecting with all these people who were doing stuff in their communities, anti-war already. So we started the first anti-Gulf War series, was called Gulf Crisis TV Project. And we made 10 half-hour shows then. And it was Iraq, it wasn't Iran, but I felt that there was such a need to know something about the region, And even though Iran and Iraq had a war between each other before, I thought that so much had to do with the outside, that war, So that's where it started, and since then I've been interested in activism and grassroots anyway, but specifically for the Middle East, because as you know, it's just really after 9/11 has become very
It's
important.
very interesting when we speak of, the grassroots projects. Maybe a lot of our viewers actually don't really understand what grassroots is all about. Can you give us a definition on what grassroots movement is?
Mm-hmm. Grassroots to me is really getting information and organizing people who are not necessarily in the big power positions, students, housewives, grocers, people who are your neighbors, and to inform each other and to get to know what's happening without, when you can't get the information on the networks, there's CNN, there's Fox, there's certain networks, but they leave a lot of our stories out, Yeah. So it's about getting our stories in.
Absolutely.
Basically, there are
starting
5
from the bottom.
Right, right, exactly.
Grassroots. Yeah.
Grassroots. There are 5, conglomerates that run the media all over the U.S., and you're not going to see on the nightly news a story that covers Palestine from even a non-biased way or equal way, but it's definitely not from a Palestinian point of view. And that's difficult when you grow up, and I'm sure you all know, when you grow up in this country and you never see anything positive about where you come from, where your parents are from, the language you speak. And so I think it's important, to try to give voice, a positive voice, to those that are maligned in the media. And the reality is that most often when you see an Arab, it's a terrorist or.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
So any project that's not a part of the mainstream media, but it's actually done on a grassroots level to portray a certain message and hopefully promote awareness, obviously belongs to everything that you're doing, and is also a part of, let's say, Deep Dish TV, which is an organization that promotes these grassroots projects.
Right.
Now another question would be, how easy is it, or how hard is it to promote these movies, these documentaries?
Well, like anything, to promote documentaries is hard work. Distribution of our work is hard no matter where we are. One of the wonderful things about Deep Dish is that as we make the shows, we already are in contact with communities. And if you are working on an issue like the Iraq War, the first Gulf War, there was several movements in the country that we could hook up with and connect with. There was grassroots organizations all over the country making things, and we connected with them. That was the case. It's not always the case. In Lebanon, around the Lebanese issue, there's not such a large movement, so we have to do more work to get the work out. And
especially, I'd also believe it's hard because in a lot of times, if you are to promote it amongst nonprofit organizations and so forth, so it's already members or people that are members of these organizations and they want to be involved in society. But what about the rest? What about the rest that don't know about nonprofit organizations or are not members of them or don't want to have to do anything unless it's mainstream media or pop culture? So that's why maybe also the message does not go to...
Yeah, it's difficult. You have to find your information. You have to look for it, and the internet provides, you know, that fully to you. That you can't just, if you decide to just sit and surf CNN and Fox News, you're never going to find something that's different from what mainstream media is. But I would say that the other aspect is that we also have to get money on our own. There is no corporate financing. Yeah. So you have to find, you know, raise money on your own. You find individuals who, you know, have the capacity to give and care as well. But there are other outlets. The European, festival market, forget it. Like the film that I worked on about Baghdad, we had huge success over there. We got it on Al Arabiya, and then they showed it on the channel, and then they had a whole discussion like this about it. I mean, the reality is the rest of the world does not, you know, cares about what's going on in the rest of the world. And it's not to say that everyone in America doesn't care, but it's difficult when you live in a bubble and you don't pop it. It's difficult.
Yeah, exactly. When you spend billions of dollars on be like, oh, you know, there's a movie called Along Came Polly, but then there's another movie that actually reflects a certain, you know, harsh reality, but sometimes reflect that happiness, just the reality of things, as you said, in a more balanced way.
Well, also just a window into a window into the culture that you don't see in you know, English or Western news or TV shows. You don't see what, you know, what she's showing, what we're showing, what other independent filmmakers are showing. You don't have access to it, and you don't have enough time in American news channels for a real story in 2 minutes.
Right,
so,
right.
But you have to nurture also those spaces that do show this work. You know, it's museums, it's colleges, it's town halls, it's your neighbor. You know, a lot of people who support and enjoy deep dish programs will say, okay, I'll invite 20 people to my house and let's watch this and let's talk about this. You know, Lebanon series, for instance, we're thinking of having screenings in New Jersey, in you know, all over the country, where people will invite their neighbors and friends to see it. You know, so it's a different way of looking. It's not sitting in front of your TV necessarily,
or just at a hookah restaurant.
Although it can be, because it's on satellite and it will be available in channels, you know, but it's a lot of work.
So actually, I want to ask you guys if you have any questions so far, any comments or anything. Sarah's just smiling. Okay, so we're gonna see the first sneak peek of the Palestine piece. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
It's called Until When. It was directed by a friend of mine called Dana Abdulrahman, who's from Palestine, and Anne-Marie Jasser and I co-produced it. Over a 3-year period, we went back and forth to Dheisheh, the refugee camp right next to Bethlehem, and followed these 4 families' lives living in the camp. And it was really like to expose just how people live, you know, to debunk the myth of a refugee, of the life of a camp, which is difficult, of course, but how they're also able to live with dignity and even some joy in the face of living under occupation. So this is just a very short clip, and I think it only shows a couple of people that we followed. But there are children and families, and it just shows, you know, they're not so different.
Around the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to get to see the part of Until When, and then we'll be right back.
حاول دارنا بس لوزة. في لوزة. لوزة باب الدار، يعني باب الدار، هنا الدار كانت هي هناك مع باب الدار. لوزة كبيرة. كبيرة وكانت تحبها هالكدي ومكوسة.
بس إلى هيك في شغلة خاصة جواتك.
ما فرقش هذه عن هذه. يعني شجرة الزيتون وشجرة التين وشجرة المشمش شجرة التفاح شجرة الخوخ كلها بعتبر زي بعضها لأن تعبت فيه وزرعتها.
حليت أنا بيعرف يتخيل منظر اللد. نعم. بالضبط. يعني من كلامك بدي أشوف اللد قدامي. أنا مرة كانت اللد فيها أشجار وفيها حيوانات وفيها كل شيء.
وانت خدتينا على الدار فوق لما قلت هاي الدار وهي قسم
انا اخذت على دارنا، كنت قلت هاي دارنا من زمان ما ملكناها.
الليد كان كلها دور جنب بعض.
زي
زي مخيم، مش زي مخيم، هذيك قرية أو بلدة الليد.
أنا عندي بنت صغيرة عمرها 4 سنين ونص. الشغلة اللي بتقلقني كثير إنه يكون مستقبلها بس زي مستقبلي. بدي مستقبلها يكون حرية، ديمقراطية، مساواة، حلو، اللي هي تقدر بكرة تعيش بشكل مرتاح وحلو، مش زي ما عشت أنا ولا زي ما عاشت أمها كمان.
A brief but definitely very touching clip from Until When. Suzy, again, as I said, even though it was a short clip, you got to feel a lot. How is it being in the middle of that?
I mean, it's definitely depressing to be in that situation for, even for me, I was just there a month at a time, but, I was able to leave. I mean, that's the point. I was able to go. They're not. And in the beginning of the clip, you see the old man walking down the street with a keffiyeh on top of his head, and he's talking about his old village. And a lot of what happens, and those who are Palestinian know, that the story of where your family's from, the village that either no longer exists or is taken over by an Israeli family, is a story that is passed down. There was an image of a hand holding a key and the key to the house, and this is all for generations now, for 60 years. So what's interesting is passing down the story is similar to passing on a house that they would have been able to give, but they can't. So the stories mean everything. And so that's what we give voice to, is the stories of these families' lives within a 3-year period, and how they grow and change. And also, during that time of filming, in March of, I think it was 2004, there was an invasion, Israeli invasion, and a couple of the kids were arrested and put in jail. And so it's definitely depressing, because a life in a refugee camp under occupation is not going to be a happy story, but it also does show that people come through, and they're able to be happy in whatever capacity, even if it's small. But that that there's real injustice going on, and the way that these people choose to live within a dignified manner is just in little ways of defiance, not huge resistance, but little ways in order just to live their life with slightly more dignity.
Do you see, or did you see, that the less people have, sometimes the more fulfilled they are, especially in comparison to us in this society?
Well, I would say yes in terms of materialism, but I would say no in terms of the fact that they had no control of how much water they were allotted. The Israelis controlled their water, so they would run out, and you can't go get more until the Israelis decide. You can't, leave pass a checkpoint without permission. So these little things. A wall is being built around your neighborhood, and you can't get to the other side.
You're being caged.
You're caged. Yeah, I mean, you're in an open air prison, much like Gaza. I mean, but so I would say that they make best with what they have, but it's not enough. Just by the pure human rights issues, it's not enough.
There's almost none.
I mean, they talk about it much more in the rest of the film. It's just, it's one thing or another. It's not being able to have enough water to make sure your family gets basic water, or to cook little things. There's no electricity. I mean, you have that in the other parts of the Arab world. Like in Beirut, the electricity goes out for 3 hours a day, but that's nothing compared to living a life under occupation where you cannot control your life.
Any positive things that you witnessed?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's amazing family ties. I mean, I think that's obviously big in the Arab culture, but when you are oppressed like that, the bonds become stronger. And intense desire for the next generation, their children, to have it be better for them. And so, education, whatever way possible that they can make it better for their children. I saw all of the parents pushing as much as they could. They would tutor their kids, more so outside of school. They would do everything, but the reality is that sometimes in the middle of school they had to evacuate because there was a shooting going on. Or, the things that are out of their control. So I think when parents have very little control over their children's lives, it makes it very stressful. But they do the best with what they have, which was really an amazingly positive thing to see.
What do you see reflecting what we saw briefly now into the Iranian culture back in Iran?
Well, it's interesting that education has been so important, and it's interesting that the father was saying, I really can't stand the idea of having my daughter have the same fate as mine. And education in Iran is also very important. It's a way to propel you out of a miserable or any situation, hopefully. So education is a really important thing, I think, in the Middle East as well, everyone, I see it in Iran. I mean, I was saying to her that after the revolution, things change in terms of what is important to be taught in schools in Iran. So Arabic became more important than English, let's say, because you can read the Quran, but English is Western. But parents realize that English is still very important, and so everyone I know sends their kids to English speaking class, and they speak very good English. Kids in Iran are totally on the internet, and they are out there because of their English skills, So education is really important to us, I think, and perhaps a key to a better Middle East.
Especially as a filmmaker and professor yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's very inspiring, and it's something to live for, right? I think that if they had no possibility for education in those camps, it would be even more oppressive, But at the same time, when you get to know more, confinement
but isn't it rough to learn and not be able to apply?
Yeah, it's a crime.
It'll always be theory.
It's a crime, but perhaps there will be a way of figuring out through all those educated minds how to, break apart that problem.
Guys, Isra,
Of course, it's always heartbreaking to see scenes like we just saw, but it's very easy for us, like was said before, just to change the channel and move on and going about doing whatever we were doing earlier. But my question is, you as a filmmaker, did you face any negativity while trying to make documentaries?
Sure. I mean, the specific one or just in general?
Just being in Palestine and trying to bring out such an important issue. When you came back here and you're trying to address these issues that CNN is, like was said before, they don't want us to see everything. They pick and choose what they think their viewers should see. So,
well, I think Palestine, Israel is a extremely hot topic, and in New York, especially when we would show it around, we've shown it on in the city at different universities, in a theater, and we've had, for the most part, really positive reactions. But there are it's a topic that defies all rationale with some people, and it just becomes purely emotional, and there's no, and I'm guilty of it too, but I feel like I fall on the facts and some don't. But the reality is, I've had more positive experiences showing this to people who may be Jewish and then see this and can relate to people. That's sort of why we made it so personal, to relate to them and see them as just other human beings. And people who may have been possibly Zionists before have come up to me, approached me personally and said that this has helped them, change their attitude a bit. And that's the most rewarding thing that you can get, because, it's one by one, but it does help to have that kind of response go towards a positive way. So,
anybody else? Go ahead.
Okay, so we saw in the video clip how the father says he doesn't want his little girl to grow up in the same environment. Now, what was the sense that you got from the children themselves there did they have a sense of, okay, we will overcome this and you know, we'll fight this? Or what was their morale? Was it high morale, low? I could understand, you know, they obviously know the situation they're living in, but do they try even harder maybe without their parents pushing them to?
I mean, they know the situation that they're living in, but they don't know that that is necessarily different from other people. You know, I think, you know, part of the problem is that when they see Israelis, they're only soldiers. So there's no humanizing of them either, right? One of the little girls who you saw there with her father, who at the time was 4 years old, we have a scene where she's playing with her toys, like every 4-year-old does. But much like a lot of kids do if they're in therapy when they're young, they sort of express their emotions through playing. And it was very interesting to see how she started crashing the toys together really intensely. And her mother asked her what she was doing, and she said, you know, she was destroying the soldiers' tank, destroying, you know, we were winning against the soldiers, you know, because all she sees as a 4-year-old is that she's in this place that her parents are very unhappy in, that they have very little control of, and she can sense that even as a 4-year-old child. And all, you know, and the Israelis are just soldiers who are driving around, and that's most Palestinians experience living in the West Bank and Gaza, right? That's the only, and to the Israelis, they're trained to see Palestinians as inferior. That's how you occupy people. So, you know, going back to directly to the question, I would say that the kids, they internalize all of that, you know, sort of, you know, angst that their parents have, and, you know, deep sadness that you just have from living in constant state of occupation. There was a positiveness in the sense that they all wanted to leave. And the reality is, leaving is what got us there in the first place. I mean, there was a forced, migration, but that won't answer the question. That won't bring things to an end. Leaving is what they want us to do, so we can't leave.
Leaving without looking back.
Yeah.
We're actually gonna get to see a clip from Simin's project. Tell us a little bit about that before we see it.
Okay, it's a 60-minute long documentary. It's called Caught Between Two Worlds, and it's about the Iranian American community in America. It's about Iranians who've come here in the past 25 years, right after the revolution, and what their life and their fate has been in this country, and you know, how they've dealt with having to leave, you know, and being in exile and so forth. So it's a clip from that film.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and see that, and we'll be back with Talk It Out.
The project is called Caught Between Two Worlds, as are all of us. We're all from places where the culture is very different from the way it is here. If there's one location, one place you could be in the world right now, where would that be?
If I could be at one particular place in the world right now, I would be in Iran and my hometown, Hamadan. Even for 1 minute. In fact, it's where I born, it's my country, and it's more than 2 years that I'm out of my country, and I really missed it. However, we had to leave as a refugee to the United States.
A lot of Iranians call themselves Persian because of the difficulties that's happened between Iran and the United States. They come here, and it's difficult to say that you're Iranian because you'll get associated with Ayatollah Khomeini, you'll be associated with Islamic fundamentalism, you'll be associated with the hostages, you'll be associated with, right now, I don't know, nuclear proliferation and this sort of thing.
What it means to be an Iranian in America, it means pretend to be Italian, and it means you know, try and trick them by telling them you're Persian. See if they fall for that, and if not, then you got to, you know, I'm half this, half that, and they fall for it. Americans love the Persians, hate the Iranians.
Yes, Persian is the same thing as Iranian eyes. Not without my daughter is just a movie replies. Olive skin and exquisite noses, beautiful profile. No, Saddam is not my uncle, and I don't own oil smile. Mommy, what is a sand nigger? Inquiries. You're not like the rest of them friendship fallacies. I'm not that dark, so maybe you'll accept me. Fantasies this sunrise.
افطار ساعت 5 و 3 دقیقه است. از همون پنیر اگه میخوای توی اون ظرفه بذاری دیگه سبزی و نونم که گرم میکنی، حلوا هم که کم هست شده ظرف که من شروع میکنم ولی احتمالا درست نمیشه. آشم داری نایه.
خوبه مثلا من اون ظرف پنیر رو بیارم. I've been to Iran twice every year for the past 3 years. 3 months in the summer and a month in January for Christmas. So I've been here 4 months and then away for 3 months, then here 4 months and away for 1 month. I've been like packing like all the time, and I had my suitcase here and I had my suitcase. It was like I wasn't living in one place. I was living like both places.
As far as achievement, they are doing excellent. As far as achievement, financial achievement, educational achievement, social achievement, they are doing great, in my opinion. Even much better than when we were in Iran. But as far as emotional well-being and meaningful relationship and coping with those who are dear and significant to you on human relationship base, we are not doing that fine, and I consider this as a social dilemma.
If you're not Persian, you can start from here. It's not like a rule.
Every other person is Iranian in school, and it's a very good community, and we're sometimes materialistic of what people are wearing. We judge them and judge them whether they're rich or not, and whether their parents are doctors or lawyers.
What was the question? I think being Iranian is very cool. You could do all kinds of stuff. Like stuff. You can talk with someone without anybody else understanding what you're saying.
That's one advantage, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
As a Persian living in the U.S., I would think it would be sad that we're going to war, but I know that's still my background and my culture, and I know that we're still going to war, and that's what's going to happen. So you never know.
I still think I could just go in the middle and stop both sides because I don't want either side to get hurt, neither the American or the Persian.
Caught Between Two Worlds, film by Simin Farkhondeh.
And Persheng said of Vaziri.
Right. Your producer as well, the other producer as well. Sorry, also I'm gonna be a little bit racist now, but the name is too long. Okay, I tried to catch it, but I couldn't. So it's more of a fun type of documentary. In a way, well, type of sneak peek that we saw. I'm sure the documentary has some serious, some funny moments, but what's, better to break in some of the information, some of the facts than a comedian sometime.
It's
true. Like Maz Jabrani that we just saw. I wanted to ask you something. Since we were not able to see the actual story of the girl that was with her mom in the kitchen, you felt that when she walked into the subway, everybody's just, sitting kind of just laid back, and she was just kind of standing, and you felt like she was nervous. Is there anything about her life story that we obviously could not see through the sneak peek that you want to share with us as to maybe why does she feel so scared just riding the subway, which is a regular day that everybody from all walks of life does every day here in New York City?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's been really a struggle for her to keep her kerchief on and to continue her beliefs, you know, and she sometimes even thinks she will take it off, and maybe she has by now, actually. You know, it's difficult to follow some of our, like in her case, some of her beliefs and bring them into the public realm when everybody else doesn't understand them or believe them. And then 9/11 happens, so it makes it even worse, you know. So it's a real struggle. Should we give in and just, you know, become all American in every way? Because she's very American, you know, in many ways, but she has chosen to keep her faith, and she wants to show it in that way, you know. So it's a struggle for her, you know. And I think in the subway you see there's an alienation that happens, you know.
It's showing that, you know, one is from an Iranian background, more prominent now or less prominent now with, you know, Iran being all over the news, especially nowadays before the elections.
You mean people saying whether they're Iranian or not? I think that, again, since 9/11, people have started to go back into their shell and try to avoid the question, unfortunately. In my case, I am determined to say I'm Iranian, and, you know, when I first came here, people couldn't say my name, and I was shy about it and afraid in a way, because, you know, the hostage crisis was still in people's minds, and I changed my name for a while. But then I said, no, I speak and say everybody's name correctly. You better learn my name. And now I stand for that, you know. But it's not for me to say that others should do it, and it's hard, you know. Especially I think men are targeted differently than women are, you know. And so it's hard. I mean, we have in the Iranian community some men who've been picked up as well and visited by the FBI and so forth. So people have moved back into their shell, unfortunately.
I mean, the reality is, too, that Arabs or Iranian, and we're all lumped in the same category.
Right.
So it's not like even...
but instead of maybe they say Khomeini, they say Bin Laden. It's
yeah,
just the
I mean, they don't know the difference.
Right.
I mean, they say Iraq and say Khomeini. They say Iran and say Saddam. I mean, the Q sound and the N sound still hasn't even settled in, you know, so it's...
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
Go ahead. I just want to say I absolutely love that clip with the kids saying that they're proud to be Iranian, because I know a lot of people, and people my age, who are very hesitant to say that they are Palestinian after 9/11 happened. And so I think it was great that you have young kids who are saying they are proud of who they are and they are proud of their country. And I just love that clip.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you know, that particular clip was also in a place where, in Great Neck, actually. Part of it was in LA, part of it was in Great Neck, where they go and create cultural programs around Iran in their public library. It's an American library, but the community is very strong in Great Neck, and they make programs all the time. They've invited us to come, you know, maybe they would invite you to come. I mean, there is that happening, but it's not everywhere, you know.
Something that also caught my attention, which is a little funny, is the whole they judge people by, you know, what they wear, if they're doctors or lawyers. It's totally something that also the whole Arabic community has everywhere, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, people make fun of it, and I think that the new generation is also getting beyond that, I hope.
Hopefully.
You know, but
something about, you know, materializing people. It's always, everybody's just always looking, be like, what are they wearing, what are they doing? You know, wow, different scar, different, what's going on, you know?
Important. It's also a way to be more Western.
Yeah.
You know, if you have the labels, if you have the right car, you know, you're mirroring.
Everybody should just walk around with the red carpet in their purse, you know, just kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you're mirroring what you see on MTV and in movies, you know.
Yeah. Sarah, I want to ask you a question.
Go ahead.
So, you know, we talked about the Iranian culture, a little bit about Palestine. We're going to talk more about Lebanon also moving forward in the episode. As an Egyptian American, what kind of, when do people point fingers at you? When people as in non-Arab Americans, like when do you feel that you maybe are being picked on? And what is something that people usually maybe pick at you on just being Egyptian American? Or being back from Egypt? Really?
Just, that's the only comment that everybody says. You guys are terrorists. Even if they say it in a joking manner. But And they go back again to the whole 9/11 issue again. You know, you guys did this, you guys did that. You're all Arabs, Muslims, specifically, but not as an Egyptian, as a Muslim, an Arab.
So when you watch some of these clips, what stood out the most to you?
How these, I mean, they don't see this here. Like, they don't see how these people get treated back in Palestine or Iran. All they see is what they show us here on American television, which is nothing like the truth, you know? I mean, Arab television, I don't know, did you see the whole, the Mir al-Arabi song that they came out with, the 45-minute clip? I mean, they wouldn't allow it to air out here, you know? But this is like something like your documentaries, and it shows what's going on, and it's horrible, you know? Nobody would like it. I mean, in college, in one of my classes, she asked me, she was saying something completely different than the truth, the professor, so I told her this is not true. So she was like, do you have something to prove it? You know? I was like, if you had Arabic television, he would know what I'm talking about.
That's a stretch. But you should just call us up. We'll send her a translation. It's all good.
I have a question for you. Were you in Palestine? Did you live in with those families, like in the house? Were you treated the same way?
I lived actually in the camp. They have this place called Ibda, which is a cultural center that I think the Dutch built. Again, the Europeans are much better with giving funds. And they built a hostel, essentially, so I stayed in the hostel. But I would spend all day long with these different families, and, you know, we got very close. And, yeah, they treated me like, you know, a daughter type of situation. I mean, my Arabic is very bad, so it was more like I understood after. Right. It was more like I understood more than I could speak, but we understood each other. And the women I was filming with spoke Arabic.
So they didn't treat you different because you're coming from America, like knowing that.
No, you know how it is. Oh, your grandfather's from Ramallah, then this is what you are. So, you know, I was in. You know, the minute I say this, it's fine. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right. So we're actually we're running out of time really fast today. I'm not gonna ask you more questions. I'm kidding. And then we're gonna see a clip for Nothing Is Safe, which is the series that you also worked as a producer.
Yeah, it's an 8-part series on the 2006 Israeli-Lebanon war, and it's several films made by Lebanese, including May Masri, Carol Mansour, and then shorts by several filmmakers in Beirut, one named Rania Stefan, Ali Cherry. There's a whole bunch of pretty well-known filmmakers who put together short pieces in reaction to the war, during the war. So we put this all together, and I made a piece called A Question of Balance. And I'm not sure if you're going to show the intro first.
We're going to show the intro.
So the intro just sets up, it's going to be like a 2-minute clip that sets up each 1-hour series that explains from different perspectives the war, what happened during the 33 days.
Okay, so we're going to see some more sad footage, but at least we can all dedicate some time to acknowledging that these things happen where we're, you know, back where we come from. We're going to see the quick introduction from Nothing Is Safe, and we'll be back.
Rationally believe that Israel would commit such an offensive and destroy such massive levels of civilian infrastructure, residential homes, schools, the like in Lebanon, over 2 soldiers. This war was not a war in retaliation to the captured soldiers. It wasn't a war in retaliation. It was a war of pure offensive measures.
For the second time in 24 hours, Israel pounded Lebanon's only international airport.
We strike the Beirut International Airfield to hint to the Lebanese government that nothing is safe once they are operating against Israel. And nothing is safe. As simple as that.
unfortunately, people in some countries are, are being told that nothing is safe. Being there, you were there, obviously.
I was actually not there during
during
that month.
So from the filmmakers, and from the feedback that you got, obviously a lot of that footage from the series was shot during and right after the war. How can people still manage to pick up a camera and shoot when they know and they've been told that nothing is safe?
I think for a lot of people, it's their only way to get through that period of time. A lot of the filmmakers' short pieces from Beirut were just almost diary-like pieces, with them interviewing their families, asking them what they have done during these 33 days. Nothing too, grotesque, which was some of the images that we just saw, which is the reality of what happened, unfortunately. But just sort of the things that are done in order to document it, because I think somewhere underneath it all, that this isn't all going to be seen, right? So somebody needs to capture it in order to make people know what's going on. And that's part of why we did this with Deep Dish. We did something for the Iraq War called Shocking and Awful a couple of years ago, and now we're doing this series on Lebanon, because it's really shameful that in the West, especially America, that we don't show in depth the damage that our taxpayer money helps pay for.
Right.
And so that's why we did this.
So we'll jump into the second and last clip that we're going to see for tonight from Nothing is Safe. Tell us a little bit more about that.
This piece I actually edited. It's called A Question of Balance, excuse me, and it follows one woman named Zahar who lives in Ait Shab, which is in the very bottom of Lebanon, and her village was destroyed by the war. And then a guy who lives in Dahi in the south of Beirut, that whole area was destroyed because it was known as Hezbollah territory. And then the third part is from this Israeli woman, an American woman I know went and shot sort of the reverse, and went up there with these British-Israeli filmmakers and shot what happened to the village of Kiryat Shimona, which is in the very northern tip. So they're kind of the flip side of each other. And you can see that the destruction is not nearly the same. But it's interesting to see their reaction to it. So,
okay. So we're going to see a clip of that, and then we have one more person here in the audience that did not ask a question, so be ready. We'll be right back.
This is my school. I learned a year here. This is my class. It's totally destroyed. There was a big juxtaposition between Hezbollah and Israel. They tried to come about 4 to 5 times Israel's army, but they cannot. They are defeated.
I think we used to watch these things in Lebanon. Since I born, and I know Israel. I know Israel, not a neighbor country. Always I watch Israel act to us as enemies. They want our land. They want our water. And anyway, this is my place. I see it now destroying, but as my father and as my grandfather teach me that we had to build everything destroyed.
You see the holes in the walls over here as well. See the Katusha land, and then you see it's packed with ball bearings. So that happens, that causes that damage. Now one of those is enough to kill somebody, if that hits somebody. Just one ball bearing. Katusha, here, the ball bearings. That's from that rock is Katusha. But he said the boy, there's an area where loads of them fell. Anybody standing here? It's just to kill plenty of people.
What we're filming right now is the frontier between Israel and Lebanon. The hills in the background is Israeli territory, but just beyond the hills is Lebanese territory. The source of where the Katyusha rockets came firing down below onto Kiryat Shmona, where we're now standing. This is where the missile landed, nose first. Exploded there, scattering all the ball bearings and nuts and bolts
into that pole over there,
into the building over there, into this pole over here, into that tree. This is part of the missile, but it's too difficult to take out.
Also, pictures for Qur'ans, yani part verses, it's not destroyed. If we walk, we will see them. Yani all the house destroyed except these pictures. I think that the God was with us and with Hezbollah because we are demanding just for independence, and we don't want to be subordinated to any dynasty except Lebanon just.
So Suzy, back on the Israeli side, they really had to get very close to count the bullet holes.
Yeah.
Here, I'm not making fun of anything. Obviously, we're anti-war, anti-deaths, anti-killing. Human lives are equally precious. No one is,
No, it goes without saying.
Obviously,
Yeah,
we're not downing anybody because of that. Human lives, at the end of the day, they're all innocent citizens. How did that analogy come about?
I mean, the reality is that with if you look back to 2006, the summer, you would not know with the coverage in America, for example, that this was the disparity between the damage of the two countries. And so with this footage, I kind of let it play out because it says everything for itself, right? I mean, obviously, for them, that was a lot of damage that was done to this village, and they were horrified by it. But if they had hopped on a bus and it was allowed, they would see just on the other side with Zahar and Ait Shab how devastating entirely her village is entirely gone, and that's just one village in Lebanon. And in Kiryat Shmona, the Israeli village, that was the most hard hit by the Hezbollah Katyushas. That was the most damage done.
So do you think that it's the media's fault that even, let's say, maybe the Israelis, the citizens of Israel, don't necessarily see this? They don't see that.
Yeah, I mean, that's another purpose of doing this kind of work with Deep Dish and on my own is to give access to Israelis who are in America to see this kind of footage they wouldn't be allowed to see otherwise, so they have an idea of what their government is doing in their name. I mean, the reality is that within Israel there is much more discourse and discontent with the way that the government is run and the illegal occupation that they're running than there is here in America, and even within our U.S. government. That's a huge problem. But I think what I really love about this footage, it was really a gold mine because I didn't have to do much. I couldn't believe my eyes and it gets worse. But it's really an example of how people within a context do not open their eyes to everything else. And I think that's hopefully the message that you get, that people, and it's not to say that the damage that was done to their village doesn't matter. It's just to say, look, first of all, look at where it all came from, and then look at the powers and a question of balance, that there is no balance. When you're talking about a country against the largest, or a group, let's say, against the largest.
It's just so funny that with this analogy and the way you did that is that you have the almost tourist-like couple that's shooting, let's say on the Israeli side, with the Land Rover parked, right next to them, and they have the mini camera, and they're like, lift this right here, this is what happened. And then the girl's like, this is my classroom, and there's nothing. You can just see one seat.
Nothing, right?
Or the other house where there's no walls left. at all. You wouldn't even think it was a house.
Right. Right.
Simin, any comments?
No, it's amazing, and I think it's true that in Israel too there's a blackout, just like there's a media blackout here. There's one there, you know. So it's really important even to send stuff back, you know, and show the community here, because I think there's a real censorship and you know, propaganda at play here that makes people really blind, have a huge blind spot about what's really happening. Definitely.
Before I don't know if you have a question or not. Do you?
Yeah, I actually don't. The comments on there is just the way that you see it from the blackout. That's the truth. I mean, everything happens over there, but really nobody sees it over here to get it on the media down here to show it. And that's something that, I mean, everybody just calls you, like Sarah said, everybody just looks at you like as you're an Arab, you're a terrorist. They don't know what's really going on down there. So if they really saw it, then they'll know the real fact and the real truth that's happening.
And where the anger derives
and where
from,
the anger
you know.
comes out exactly.
Yeah,
that's how
it's
they
real.
see it.
It's coming from someplace. It's not coming from a vacuum, you know.
I just have a question for you guys, and that is, would you, you know, work towards looking for pieces like this, you know, to show, to look at yourself and to show to your families and friends and classrooms, you know? Would you work, because it's a little work, you can't just take the clicker, or sometimes you can, but.
Absolutely, it's definitely.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to also say one thing, because I know you shared with me when we were telling you about this episode, a website that you saw that kind of got you a little upset. Just if you remember a little bit of the information that you told me about.
Yeah, I was watching a website. I was looking for some positive feedback about 9/11 and how everybody feels about it now, and I came across this one website. I don't know if I should even mention the website, but they have a documentary about the aftermath of 9/11, and it was about the Iranian people's reaction, and they were just pretty much blaming the Arabs as portraying as being the ones who are showing 9/11 in a negative way, and it was really our fault. And they show like this this one show.
Iranians in Iran?
No, this is here about the Iranians' reactions 5 years later. And they were just talking about how they were showing images that we would have never even thought twice to look at. And they were just showing people talking about how 9/11 was pretty much our fault and how we're kind of laughing at it. And they showed the Arabs, of course, parading and celebrating in the streets, and they don't show the heartbreak and how angry we are. So the blame was pretty much set on us. And I would definitely look into researching some videos to show, because what we just saw would be something that we would see the Israelis' part. We wouldn't see what happened in Palestine and all the destruction there, because CNN or any other media would want us to see only the Arabs as the people who actually, the Arabs would be pushed aside, and we would only see one part of the story. And it's sad, because we would see the Israelis walking down the street and with the bricks like coming out of the ground, and we wouldn't see the school being destroyed. So it's heartbreaking. Yeah.
I mean, it's a problem, because there are people, as you said, forces, people in Israel who, you know, soldiers who refuse to go to become soldiers. They go to jail. I have a student myself who did that. I mean, there are people, but we don't hear about their story either, so we can't connect and create more solidarity.
Well, at the end of this episode, I wanted to really thank all of you for being a part of the show. Thank you so much, Suzy, Salamy. Thank you so much, Simin, Farkhondeh. And hopefully that the message of just at least research to look, or research to find out what others think. You know, you might be mistaken, you might be right, you might wonder, you might want to go pick up a camera or research or spread knowledge through education or arts and so forth. And hopefully that this hourly, weekly piece on Dandana TV with Talk It Out will help spread these different messages socially and culturally. I'm Zeina Yazbek for Talk It Out, sponsored by ArabLounge.com. I will see you next week.
This show is sponsored by
بتحبوا تلتقوا مع أصدقاء عرب رائعين وعزاب؟ Create a free profile today.
بتربط العرب بكل مكان.
arablounge.com.
The biggest and best website for meeting Arabs online.
أكبر وأفضل موقع لملاقاة العرب عبر الإنترنت. Browse, click, connect.
arablounge.com. Connecting Arabs worldwide.